Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda,
And I'm Jake Bennett.
and welcome to episode 88 of the North Meets South Web podcast.
All right, guys and ladies, and all you folks out there, this is the first episode of the new year, 2021. Here we are. We made it, Michael. We made it through 2020. And just as we guessed, 2021 seems to have just as many problems as 2020 did. Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? But we do have a vaccine, right? I mean, we do. So that's good news.
It's certainly a step in the right direction.
It is.
Very interested to see how you get 100 million people vaccinated in 100 days. So I'm looking.
I heard that they were going to do some sort of stimulus and tie the vaccine, like being vaccinated, as like a prerequisite. So that might work. I mean, if they're like, hey, yeah, that might work. Who knows? I have some close friends who actually, because I guess the vaccine is like a two-part thing. You get vaccinated, like the first part, and then so there are people who have been able, they fall in one of the categories that kind of, gets them the vaccine sooner, I think.
Yep.
So they got their first one and then got a positive COVID test. So well, it's like, dang it, so close. So I don't know, like, is the COVID test like testing? I don't know. Who knows, right? I'm not sure. So anyway, they're self-quarantining. I'm just hoping that they can get their second.
Did they get tested before or after they got the vaccine?
After.
Yeah, well,
because they have to test like every day for their job. So it's like they have to like temperature check and like rapid test like practically like at least a couple times a week.
I would assume that, taking the vaccine would then make it come up on the test.
I would think so too. But I mean, the policy says like if you have a positive COVID test that you have to so whatever.
Yeah,
so they're following the rules.
Yeah.
I know. And so it's just a little bit weird. So anyway, I don't know what that looks like. I'm not sure. Like normally, so basically, because I talked to them, they're like, yeah, I'm asymptomatic. I have no symptoms. Like I feel totally fine, like zero symptoms. So it's curious if it's like, if it is something like the test is coming up saying like, oh, yep, you're positive. Because normally you wouldn't go get a test unless you were feeling some sort of symptom, right? You know what I mean? But since for their job, they have to get rapid tested every couple times, every couple days. Yeah, it came up as positive. So anyway, a little bit weird. But you know what? It's good news. They got the vaccine out there and yeah, hopefully, I know I watched some football games today, so that was cool. Like football is still going on and the Super Bowl is still going to happen. And yeah, man, it's good. It's good. So
it's good.
Onward and upward here.
The NBA's, there's no fans allowed in the arenas and the NBA's doing the things to make sure that the players are safe. And they're postponing games all the time. Like there's probably one or two a week that they've had to postpone because, once one player gets it, they have to contact trace through the team. And then they have to go and contact trace, who did they play yesterday? And then that team's unavailable to play, and they're getting to the point where they're not able to field full squads. Or, you have to have 8 players, I think, to be able to play. So, on a roster of 15 or 16, they can't get 8 because of, contact tracing and then subsequent isolation and whatever, because then they have to go into isolation for 14 days to make sure that they don't develop symptoms.
Which is
and things like that.
10 now or something? I don't know. I feel like they moved it down to 10. CDC said like there's only 10 days now, so I don't know.
Yeah. My parents just came back from visiting my sister, and we said to them, don't go, because number one, they're like Sydney which is in New South Wales, had just been labelled, or the Northern Beaches got labelled a hotspot. So we're like, don't go because you don't know if the border's closed, you get stuck there.
Right, that would suck, yeah.
You might have to get sent to quarantine and things. And they were nowhere near. Like Sydney is central kind of New South Wales or down towards the bottom southeastern corner of New South Wales. So they were nowhere near it where they were. But because they were in New South Wales, even though they didn't transit through the hotspots or anything, coming back home, they had to apply for, application to come back home as returning residents of South Australia, and they had to get tested. So they came back yesterday. No, 2 days ago they came back, and they had to get tested on day 1, 5, and 12, and they got told at the border, oh no, you don't have to isolate, you just have to get tested on 1, 5, and 12. But if you get tested, you're supposed to stay isolated until you get the results. And like we're obviously quite confident that given where they were and the fact that they weren't near anyone that that was knowingly infected, they will be fine. But if they have to get tested at 1, 5, and 12, well, they got tested on day 1 and they got their results and they were negative on day 1.
It's good.
But that doesn't mean that like between day 1 and 5 that they wouldn't develop symptoms. So they
Sure.
they
Right.
shouldn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like the rules are weird. It's like you have to isolate after getting the test result, and you have to get tested 3 times over a 12-day period.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they're like, oh no, you don't have to isolate. You can just like go about your business. I'm like, well, what if the day
If
1
you got a
test doesn't
negative
show
test,
anything?
right?
Yeah, you got a
Yeah.
negative
Right.
test on day 1, but what if on day 5 you don't get it, but on day 6 you present with symptoms? Like it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
I
And
know. It's
we think
weird.
it'll be fine, but we're just like, sorry, we'll see you in 12 days once you get that final all clear kind of thing. Because we told you not to go. Basically, we said don't go. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, and Ree's grandpa is pushing 90, and we've got the 2-year-old and the 4-month-old. Like we said sorry. You made your bed, now lay in it.
Yep. Understand. It's like you're dealing with your children. Like, well, you made that choice. Now you get to deal with the consequences. So there you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm embarrassed
we talk
to
about
say
good
this.
choices. We talk about good
Yeah,
choices and
good
bad
choices.
choices with Eli now. And we're
Yeah.
like, is that a good choice, Eli? He's like, yes, we make a good choice. Okay. All right, bud.
So when he was jumping on your green screen the other day, were you like, Eli, hey, buddy, mate, is that a good choice? He's like, yes, daddy, this is a good
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he quite knows good and bad, but we're starting to teach him about consequences, and he's 2.5 now, but he's only just hitting the sort of terrible twos teenager phase, and there were a couple of days last week where he was like quite like he would the switch would flick and he would just go crazy.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
there were a couple of days last week when he came home from childcare. We're like, there's no TV tonight, bud. You have to, there's got to be consequences for your actions. And that was certainly interesting. Certainly
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you hate to do it as a parent, but like it's good for their good, right? It's definitely for their good.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he's not watching TV, that means I can't watch TV either. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a punishment for you, man.
Mhm.
That is true. That is very true. Hey, I was gonna say I'm embarrassed to admit this. Okay, I just looked up Australian states. Because when you were saying New South Wales, I was like, what is? I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, different states in Australia. I didn't know the different. I mean, I've heard of them. I've heard of like
Mhm.
Queensland and Victoria. Like I've heard of them, right? But I was like, I don't know what he means. I get it now. I get all the states. They're there. I see them. So, are you in South Australia? Yeah,
we're in
South
South
Australia.
Australia, yeah.
Adelaide. Got it. Nice. Hey, man. You've had some exciting stuff going on, and I think you're probably free to talk about it now. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're okay. We touched on it briefly on the Laravel News podcast, but not really
Yes.
not really content for there, but we can talk about it here now.
Yes. This is pretty exciting stuff. So, yeah, I think did we talk about it? I don't remember how much we talked about it, but we basically said like you're starting a new job. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And that I think this is your 4th job since I've known you.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
serial
moving
job
around
hopper.
and
Moving
yeah,
around.
exactly.
I mean, the first 2 I kind of left due to financial distress of the businesses. They were
Right. 'Cause they were acquired or something, right? Like that.
Yeah, one was just they went through a tough time and they didn't have the work or the the income to basically it just looked rocky. And that agency they're still around now and they're doing great work
Good.
and they're
Yeah.
still working. So it's fantastic for them. The company that I went to from there is I think it's changed hands twice since it was sold when I was there. And they're a little bit rocky. They were their data center and they did a lot of managed hosting and managed services and things like that, which lots of people kind of are moving away from now. And a lot of the big media clients that we had there are sort of they were kind of testing the waters at that point to see do we want to do this kind of stuff? Do we want to, that kind of exploratory stuff, which is why they came to us as managed services to do all that stuff and to kind of test the waters and see if that's what they wanted to do. And then once they decided, yep, this is great, then it was a matter of, they start hiring and they get their own people on board and they get their own infrastructure and they start managing their own stuff. And so there was a lot of that and lots of people moving to AWS and managing their own stuff. So, and the work that I was doing there basically was a lot of that media side of things. And so it kind of dried up and then there wasn't anything to do anymore. So I had the opportunity to jump across to an internet provider and that went really well. I was there probably about 3 months before they announced that they were being acquired. And
Oh
so I went
gosh.
through my third acquisition in 4 jobs, and stuck around there for 3.5. Would have been 4 years this July. And so it was a good run. But things kind of started changing here, in that business, and just the way that it was, the being run and the direction, and it was change of sort of exec level and things like that, where I wasn't too enthused about the direction of the company, and you know to their credit, I think they'll be okay. It's just that I was approached by a company that had been trying. We joked about it for a year and a half. They'd come to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to steal you away from this company," and that kind of stuff. And nothing ever really came of it until late last year, where they came to me, and they had said, we're ready to make a serious offer, because I had always joked that, I won't go into the specifics of it on the podcast, but I had always joked that, if they wanted to steal me away from this company, that there was a significant, I guess, signing bonus attached to it, and they came to the table on that late last year, and this was on a Thursday, and I said, I'm flattered, I'm blown away, but I'm gonna stay here at my current job. I was pretty happy with it, and everything was going fine. And then a few hours later, my boss,
A good mate.
my good mate, he came to me and he's like, "Yeah, I'm resigning." And he was
Oh gosh.
one of the original founders of the company that had been acquired, and he'd been in the game for 15 years, and he said, "I'm out." And I thought about it, and I was like, "No, I'm okay. We'll stay in touch, and we'll still be mates, but the work is still okay here, and things are going well." And so I rejected the offer, even though they came to me, with
Yeah, right.
with everything that I'd asked for. And then the next day, Aaron, because I was Aaron's supervisor, I guess, and he came to me and said, it's happening. I'm leaving. So he put in his resignation the next day, and so I went back to this company and I said, "So do you want to put that offer
Hey, so
to
you
me
still
in
got a
writing?"
position now? Yeah, yeah.
So they put the offer to me in writing on Friday. I mulled it over the weekend, and then on the following Monday, I put in my resignation. And there was some back and forth between me and in the current company. They were, they tried to keep me. They met the salary offer. They had no intention whatsoever of coming to the table with the signing bonus, which I totally understand. It's not something that I would expect them to be able to meet, but this is something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity. And another week went by, and they were still trying to woo me, and they offered me some stuff, monetary and financial benefits and things like that. And I said, no, I think I'm still going to take this, because I have the opportunity now to go and essentially do the same thing with this new company that I did with the last company, in sort of taking a legacy code base, but something
Yeah.
that is generating millions of dollars in revenue and things like that. Like it's the kind of thing that like it scales up that quickly, and it just works, but there's no test, there's no verification, there's no
Right,
validation of any
exactly.
of that stuff.
So
you
making
don't,
changes gets really nasty. Yeah.
yeah, it gets scary, and as the company grows, it needs to do different things, and it needs to be able to facilitate different things that just couldn't do. And so it was good doing that, and we built it up quite a bit. We built the team up, and the code base is in a much better state than it was 3 years ago, and it's much easier to make changes, and it's and all that good stuff. And so I get the opportunity to go and do that again with a company that's been around for 10, 12 years, that has a lot of legacy code that works. That's not necessarily tested, but it's battle tested, but it's not automated tested. There's no CR or anything
Right,
like
sure.
that.
Exactly.
Lots of it is still running on PHP 5.4. So there's the
Yikes.
opportunity to modernize PHP, modernize
What
possibly
framework is
some
it
of the
on? Do you know?
practice. There's no framework. It's all
Oh
bespoke
my.
PHP, right? So this is
This is the hardcore
legacy.
stuff.
Yeah. This is legacy in the truest sense
Strangler
of the,
pattern
of
to the
term.
rescue.
Yeah. So there's bits and pieces that will probably not get converted to Laravel. There's things that will just be vanilla PHP, but it'll be a matter of figuring out, can they be upgraded? Lots of sort of understanding of what is there and what can and can't be done, and possibly why things are still where they are, whether that's through, lack of resources or lack of, just being an outside perspective.
So yeah. So like when they're bringing you in, right? Because there's not a lot of business value, and I mean the only business value that there is in refactoring an existing code base is to be able to make changes easier in the future, right?
Yeah.
So like what's their big like for you, what's the value that they're having you bring to the company from the outside? What are they wanting you to do when you come in? Are they saying, "Hey, listen, we want you to spend the first 2 years just basically making it no changes. There's no feature additions. We just want you to make our existing code base better." Like, is that what they're bringing you on for, or is it just like
initially it's? I mean, it'll be an outside perspective. There's two developers at this company. One is the founder. So the founder is a technical person,
Sure.
is still in the day-to-day,
Okay.
writes a lot of code. And the other developer has been there will have been there 10 years when I start.
Yeah.
So as you know, possibly, and as some of our listeners would know, that if you are in one place in that kind of environment, PHP 5.4, 5.5, 5.6 for 10 years, your code is going to be in a certain way. It works, it's battle tested, there's nothing wrong with it other than it's not what you would consider modern. And so to be looking
it's
at
end of life. 5.4 is
long gone. 5.4, like even 7.3 is end of life now. So it'll be a matter of looking at that kind of stuff, seeing if there is a path forward. Do you want to upgrade performance? Not necessarily from a new feature perspective. They're not want for new features because 5.4 is serving them fine. But
Exactly,
upgrading from 5 to 7, there's huge performance gains to be had. And for the kind of work that they're doing, then performance is something that would certainly factor into an equation, I would think. And they've got a backlog of features. They've got like a feature request thing, like Jonathan Rennick did the wants thing.
Yes, right.
As part of his inertia demo at Laracon a couple of years ago. So they've got a feature board like that where customers of the business can go and they'd vote on things, they'd submit things, and then people would vote. This is the thing, and so it's customer driven, the kind of things that they're working on. So there's a backlog of features that they want to develop that they haven't got time or they haven't had resources and things like that. And then there's also a couple of projects which will be greenfield, which will be to rewrite their bits and pieces of their application space. So it's the kind of thing that I enjoy, kind of as a day job, just doing bug fixes and run of the mill feature requests and things like that. It gets a bit drab, and being able to like look at things and really refactor them and modernize them and things like that, that's in my wheelhouse and something that I enjoy doing. And there's a lot of work on that front, but there's also plans to grow the business and expand and things like that over the coming years. So hopefully this company doesn't fall victim to the same thing that the last one did, where it becomes a bit of a growth thing. We want to get heaps of customers on board, and I totally get why it became a growth thing and why that needs to happen, but not really what I was interested in. So being able to stay technical, and the biggest benefit for me is being able to just work for 8 hours a day, close the lid on my MacBook and be done at the end of it. There was lots of days where I was working right up until Eli came home from childcare, stopping for dinner and then going back to work. When there were faults, I had to jump on them out of hours, fixing things, helping people, all that kind of stuff. Whereas this would just be purely programming. There's no team for me to look after. There's no stakeholders across the country that I need to work with. It's just being able to program, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to.
So no team. So you'll be under this guy who's been there for 10 years. So like obviously founder, then developer, then you, Aaron, and then the one other guy that was like, you said, he was like an executive or something. Was he leaving to go to this company or just left to go somewhere else?
No, he just left. He has been working on his own like separate business, which
Sure.
is got some VC funding. So he's
Cool. Okay.
it's something that we'll probably talk about later, if we remember once it's a bit more public what they're doing and things like that. I don't know how much I can
Cool.
say about it, so I won't. But
Yeah, no worries.
yeah. So the executive, he's been spending probably the last year and a half or so, maybe 2 years on this side thing, and he's got some big names investing in it, and a lot of companies that are using it and things like that. So that's really taking off now, and you know, he said to his CEO, you know, I can put in 40 hours a week at the current job, and I can put 40 hours a week in, you know, basically working 2 full-time jobs. And the CEO of his other company said, if you can work 80 hours a week, I want you to work 80 hours a week for me. So he was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. So I don't know
Nice.
that 80
Yeah.
hours a week is wise, but he's got people working here and in the US. So, you know, obviously you're aware of the time zones. So he needs
Ooh,
to
boy.
be
Yeah.
available at all kinds of crazy times of day. So, you know, he'd be waking up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning to liaise with his team in the US, and then he'd be getting up to come to work here at, you know, 9 o'clock. So,
Oh my gosh. No, thanks.
yeah. So it's
It's like having a baby.
yeah, definitely. So it's definitely interesting, the space that he's gone into. Aaron had the opportunity to go and be a CTO. Maybe
Nice.
we can get
That's
him on
awesome.
to talk about it sometime if he's interested.
Yeah.
He'll
So
listen
not
to
at the
this
same company
episode.
that you're going to?
Not different companies. So
No,
all
it's
three of us are
okay,
going
so
to
you guys are
different
all
companies.
going different ways. Okay,
Mhm.
that's cool. Yeah, it's good to have people at other places too, though, right? Like
Yeah.
it's good to know, like, kind of
Everyone-
spread your wings
Yeah.
a little
Everyone-
bit. Yeah,
everyone
and
at my
like
last
also
company
it's like it's like
was
redundancy,
sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
you have some security and redundancy, I suppose, because you
Mhm.
know people at other places. So it's like
Correct.
if something goes down bad at this place, it's like, hey, Aaron,
Yeah.
you're CTO. Could you think you
Yeah.
got a spot for me, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And like everyone at my last job was so sure that I was going to work with the exec, you know, that I'd been poached away.
Yeah, right.
Which it's frowned on. You know, it's don't go to another company and poach staff is basically what it comes down to.
Oh,
in-
for
in
sure.
some
No,
of the
I
employment contracts.
totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a situation where that happened, not in my current employer, but a dude hired a team and then was like, hey, I want this. And they were like, nope. And he's like, okay, I'm leaving. And then he left and then like over the next 6 years,
Yeah.
took the rest of the creative team
Yeah.
with him. It was like,
I mean, you know,
"Eesh." It didn't feel
probably,
good, right?
Yeah, there's probably a statute of limitations on that. You know, certainly not, I'm going to go and start a new job and then a week later I'm going to start stealing people. But, you know, 6 years is probably fine.
No, it was 6 months. Sorry.
6 months.
It was like six.
Okay,
No,
well,
yeah,
6
not
months is
even.
probably
Like,
a bit tight.
It was like 2 weeks. Like over the next 6 months, he got all of them.
Yeah, right.
Like in the first week, it was like one of them, and then the next 2 weeks, it was like another one, and then the next, like, you know, took a while for a couple of the other guys to come over, but
Yeah.
kind of left the other company a little bit high and dry. It worked
Yeah.
out for the best, but yeah, it's like I understand what you're saying, like saying it's frowned upon, like it's like, come on, you can't really.
You can't really
it's not
stop.
good business ethics.
And like, you know, if a job posting goes up on, we have seek.com.au, which is the job, you know, if a job goes up and one of the people that you used to work with happens to see it and they happen to apply for it and they happen
sure,
to get
absolutely,
the job,
right, yeah,
then,
not your bad.
you know, it is what it is. But if you're directly approaching people, that's another story
Sure.
altogether. So
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested in about this. So this other job. So, you know, obviously you said you're going to be jumping into sort of a legacy code base. So do you have a particular strategy? I know you haven't started there yet. I think you have like another week until you start at this other position.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any like
this time next
particular
week.
strategy you're going in with, or is it kind of just like, well, I'm just figure it out when I get there? So like you're shaking your head no. So I'm guessing that means, right? Like you're just going to kind of jump into it and kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah. So they're a service company. So, well, they're a service provider. They're in telecommunications. They're not
Like an
internet.
ISP. Okay.
Yeah.
Not internet. Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know whether I'm being trolled by my new boss or if this is serious, and I'm totally okay with it either way. But I may need to do tech support for a couple of weeks. You know, just to speak with customers, to get a feel for the
Sure.
business, to get a feel for the systems
Oh,
and things
absolutely.
like that. So, yeah, there's that. And then in terms of what I'm going to be working on, I'm going to have to remember how to write PHP 5.4 because, you know, obviously we're going to lose loads of things in
Yeah.
terms of like,
It might be
Yeah.
less painful than you think. I mean, you still got classes and stuff, right? You know, it's
Sure.
not like you're going way, way back.
yeah, but there's like
There's some
PHP
nicety
7
stuff.
specific things that I'll lose, which, you know,
For
and
sure.
I'll just configure my environment to tell me not to do things like that. You can use Rector and things like that that'll tell you if you're that please make sure that my code base is PHP
Sure,
5.4 compliant, and it'll make sure that you don't sneak a short closure in there or whatever, callables that don't belong. Or I
Tell
don't
me,
know. It's been so long since I've been in PHP 5.4, but
tell me at least that they're using Composer and not like loading in dependencies.
I don't think they
No,
load in
they're using Composer.
dependencies.
Oh man. Well, that can be rectified. I mean, like Composer. So we had a CodeIgniter code base, right? And they used like, I think they called them like Sparks or something. It's kind of what their sort of plugin thing was,
Mhm.
and we figured out how to throw Composer in there. It wasn't too bad, but like that was a big difference. Like that made a huge difference right away because you can start pulling in things like Stauffer's. What are those called? Like those basically those ported over.
Yeah. The standalone
Laravel.
Laravel components.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember what he calls those, but like collections, like just collections. Like okay, that feels better. Like like pulling in envs from .env, right? That feels better. Okay, like so you get some of those things like, and it doesn't take too long, and you feel sort of like a little bit more comfortable. Like okay, like I know that I have available to me some of these libraries, or if I need to make a library, like it doesn't have to be open source, but it can even be private, like packages that I can pull in. Like a container where you can just resolve these things out of that, like instead of having to go all the way back to the dark ages of like, okay, I have to new up everything in every single spot.
I mean,
it'll be
that's going by the
interesting to
assumption
see.
that they have classes in in their code base. Like
boy.
it could all be
Man
procedural with PHP.
Well, if it's all like, so here's the only thing that I'd be worried about, right?
It's probably
Is
just
if
global
it's like
functions.
if it's all like, if you get to the top of like the index.php page and it's like include, and then halfway down it starts HTML and head, like like that's going to be really scary.
Probably, yeah. There's a couple.
That's the thing. Like the people do. I remember seeing a guy. He's like, "Yep, I made $1 million using this whatever," and it's like literally, it's exactly what it is. It's like inline PHP with HTML, and it's like
what is it?
sometimes that's all you
Peter
need.
Levels. Peter Levels, I think.
That's it. That's the guy.
Yeah.
Yep, that guy.
And
so yeah, you're right. I mean, like it's totally plausible, but like it's just, yeah, it feels.
And this is the thing. There are businesses that have been around for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. As long as PHP's been around, because PHP was a language that was built to do this kind of stuff, to get you up and running on the web extremely quickly and extremely easily.
Yep.
And, not to take anything away from the programmers and the people that are using it, but, there are modern practices or even just straight up basic object-oriented programming practices that weren't used in a lot of these applications. They weren't needed because we were just quickly writing stuff. It was Red Bull or alcohol fueled coding from 5 o'clock Friday night to 9 a.m. Monday morning when you wanted to start billing customers. We've got to build a billing system over a weekend, and so you wouldn't sleep for 2 days and you'd be chugging Red Bull and coffee and God knows what else, and you'd be building this billing system, and then on Monday you'd bill your first customers and everything worked. Hands in the air, billing system works, don't touch it. And then, and now it's battle tested. It works for real customers. You don't need to go back and write tests for that because you're never going to change it because it's always the same thing. And as much as you and I, and I'm sure any of our listeners know that TDD is the right way and object-oriented programming is good and all that kind of stuff. There are multi-million-dollar businesses out there that are built like this. There are so many of them.
Yeah,
that you might look at it now and
it's
cringe.
Scary. Yikes.
But
yeah.
These are businesses that have been around for years and years, that they stood the test of time in spite of the code that they run on. And, there's a lot of us now that will start a SaaS, that will build a SaaS and will do it the right way and will use Laravel and will, make sure that it's TDD'd and all of that stuff. And it might not last 6 months,
Yeah, exactly.
But here's these businesses that are generating tens of thousands of dollars of revenue per day, per week, whatever, that are built on, some functional programming.
A heap of
practices.
garbage. Yeah, right,
totally. What we would now consider
duct tape and
yeah.
Well, I mean, even they would probably consider to be sometimes like just duct taped together. I remember I had some, it's a couple of years ago, probably 2.5 years ago. Yeah, this guy, it was just, they sold like sunglasses and like, I think that's what it was. It was like Cool Frames or something like that. That's what it was called. I can't remember. But yeah, like crazy money. They made crazy money. They're like, hey, could you think you could help us build this like coupon code feature thing? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Oh my gosh. It was Laravel
Hmm.
Laravel, right? Like, just that's the thing is like, just because something is built on Laravel, it almost means nothing. Like
Correct.
there is all sorts of crackpot Laravel stuff out there, man. It's crazy what you
100%.
find if you start going into that world of like, yeah, oh, it's Laravel. It's well, barely like if you can call that Laravel, like
Hmm.
it goes through the request cycle, right? You have a control, you have a routes file, you have a controller, and then outside of that, it is just wild country. Like it's back to PHP 5 whatever, right? It's just it doesn't make any sense. Like it follows no convention at all. It's just all over the place, right? So, like you said, it's possible. It is even possible too that like
Yeah.
you have somebody who's running on 5.6 who actually has a better code base than somebody who's running on Laravel. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I found this out when we were interviewing developers too, right? I was like, I was looking for people like, okay, I'm looking for people who are Laravel developers. And so like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we're Laravel developer. I found them on Laravel jobs, right? Yeah, I'm a Laravel developer. Great.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, then I want you to build this thing like as like, I will pay you for your time. I want you to build this very, very, very simple feature using Nova and Laravel. Okay. Horrible, horrible stuff. And like, just the worst stuff imaginable. Like you
Mm.
can't even believe that these people like call themselves like, oh yeah, like we do this all the time. I'm like, who's paying you to do this? Like, it's just
Yeah.
terrible.
Yep.
So anyway, it runs the gamut, right?
Yep.
You never
Yeah,
know.
it does.
You never know.
So yeah, I'm
Well, I
looking
wish
forward.
you well. I'm
Yeah.
excited for you. I'm yeah, congratulations on all the cool stuff, the cool new stuff that you guys are going to be working on there and the fun new toys that you're getting as a result of the your fun signing bonus. Super
Hmm.
cool. I won't spoil the surprise. I'm sure you'll have some pictures up.
Oh, look, it'll get out that I am. It's the kind of thing that I don't want to like. I'm super super excited about, and I want to tell the world, but I don't feel it appropriate.
I understand. I
So
understand.
if
Yeah.
someone asked me in private, I would tell them. So if you want to know, then I'll tell you. But yeah,
Let's just
it's
say,
not the kind of thing that you jump up and down about.
yeah. Let's just say I'm going sailing on Michael's yacht next summer. Not true. Not true. But how cool would that be? They were like, listen, man, we're just gonna buy you like a 50-foot yacht
Yeah.
for you'd be like, okay, I'm in. I'm in.
If there's one thing that this
Um
experience has taught me, is that developers typically undervalue themselves. Um,
mm-hmm. Sure.
and and I think it's fairly well established that if you want a pay raise in this industry, then you change jobs. Now, I was fortunate that when I was planning to change the job, my company came to me and said, well, actually, we can match that. And I thought to myself, well, if you can match it, why am I not already being paid that kind of thing? That if you have the capacity to do
Mm.
it, then you should probably already be doing it, not waiting until a doomsday scenario. Um,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. As a business owner, I would get it. Like, you don't want to overpay if you don't have to. But I totally get what you're saying too. Like, I get
mm,
your perspective as well. But
yeah,
like, you would have been maybe less inclined to leave if you would have been paid better, I guess.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
it's a good lesson though. It is
I
a good
told them, yeah,
lesson. Like,
thanks,
if
but no
you
thanks. But if
right.
so the point that I was trying to get to is that people typically undervalue themselves, and so when I said, let's do this, it was aim high and see where we can come back to, rather than going, oh, I get this much. Maybe if I want a new job, I should ask for like 5K more or 10K more. Um, if you look around and you have an understanding of what someone of your skill level is being paid elsewhere, and what the market is capable of paying. Now, this isn't going to last forever. Like, I was
True
talking
story.
on Slack with some people this morning, and we're talking about the mining boom. Um, and there were people that were being paid $200,000-$300,000 a year to be construction workers. That would be the guys that stand there with the lollipop sign, the stop sign, the slow.
Yep. Yep.
Getting 300K a year to just stand around doing that. And then if it was hot or whatever, then they would go home and they'd get double time and a half for going home. So this, and it was one of the comments that came out was that we are effectively in the mining boom for nerds at the moment, that we can go out and
Yep.
get paid really well to what is ultimate, like it's a mentally draining line of work that we're in a lot of the time. but it's for all intents and purposes a really easy job. I mean, look at the office I'm sitting in. I've got pretty lights. I've got the air conditioner on my head. It's
Right.
hot
Yeah.
outside, but I'm in here, nice and cool, kind of thing. I'm another person with a podcast talking about this. Where there are people out there that are doing like real manual labor. We had bushfires. We had a bushfire start. So it
Right.
was 40 degrees yesterday. We had a bushfire start. Overnight, the wind turned. We had rain, and today we
Oh
have a
no.
flood warning. So,
Oh my
to
gosh.
anyone who thinks
That's
that
Australia.
climate change is not a thing, like yesterday bushfire, today flood warning overnight. So we are definitely very fortunate and very privileged in this industry to be able to be paid well for the work that we do.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's either change jobs or change positions, right? And if
Mhm.
you're not interested in changing positions, then yes, change jobs, right? I went to a conference one time and they said first impressions are forever. And the idea was like if you hire in as the junior developer, you're always going to be the junior developer. You're never getting out of that junior developer salary unless you somehow change positions within the company, but it's still going to be very difficult to
Mhm.
do. And you're probably not going to get paid for the
You'll get,
value unless
correct.
you change jobs.
You
Right.
get typically you get paid based on the band that you're in. If you come
Yeah.
in, if if the company has an expectation to pay you say $80,000 at the role, most companies, if you come to them and say I want 65 or 70, then they'll be like, yeah, you're going to get 70, right? They'll pay you what you ask for. Especially if you're under what they're expecting to pay,
For sure. Hmm.
getting up to the right level, getting back to that 80K, they might say, oh, it's hard and I had to talk to some people and move some things around, but we can get you to sort of 75. But they were going to pay you 80 when you asked for 65. So,
Mm.
I'm sure that happens a lot, and I'm sure once you get in the band, when you look at a job, there's a salary range, and it's like based on qualifications and based on experience and all of that kind of stuff. So, depending on where you lie in that band, you could ask for more. You don't know, like if they think that you're credentialed enough, and a lot of the times, I know that when they were interviewing for my replacement and for Aaron's replacement, that we had heaps and heaps of applications, but the number of people that we actually proceeded to an interview with, and then the number of people that they eventually, they got to two candidates, but it was a lot of applications that get filtered out even from HR. Like HR goes through them first and filters out the obvious no-nos. And then it gets through to sort of like my level and my boss's level, where we kind of filter through for previous experience, skill level, and all that kind of stuff before we get to, phone screenings. And then we do the interviews, and then it's a whole process. So yeah, it's changing jobs. You don't want to do it, especially if you're at a good company and you enjoy the people that are around you.
Right.
Now, unfortunately for me,
Yeah.
the people that were around me all left, and so I thought, well,
Left. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
probably not going to get this
Exactly.
opportunity again, so I may as well take it now. And
Yep.
it's given me the
Yeah, because
opportunity
right, exactly.
to have a couple of weeks off to spend some time at home. We got Australia Day tomorrow, so Eli will be home tomorrow and Wednesday, so we'll get to hang out and do some stuff. And
Nice, man. That's great.
and the new position's full time remote, so I'll never leave
That's
the
awesome
house
too.
again.
Yeah.
Especially now, like when you don't
It's
want
good
to
and
leave
bad,
the
right? I
house because
suppose.
of the
Yeah.
pandemic that is still going on. Surprisingly, it didn't stop on the 6th of January, so. Or the
Mhm.
4th of November, or
Mhm.
whenever it was meant to stop. I don't know. It was supposed to just go away. The hoax was over.
Yeah. I don't know. So like I like being at work sometimes, most of the time I think, but I do still enjoy remote work too. I'm glad I have the flexibility to do both. If I kind of like whichever, but
Yeah, we have an
yeah,
office
yeah,
here in Adelaide that I'll probably go to like once a fortnight, just when I need to see
sure.
some people that are not my
Yeah,
wife
for
and
sure.
my
That's
children.
nice. Yep.
But for the most part, it will just be work from home. My iMac that I had for my last job went into the shop last week to have the Fusion drive, which seemed like a good idea in theory, but is actually a horrible
They're
thing.
horrible. Oh my gosh, so
Um,
bad.
So I was swapping the 1 terabyte Fusion for a 1 terabyte SSD. So that will be coming
Nice.
home, and that will then become
Awesome.
my computer. So I'm with having more time at home, not having to commute and things like that. I'll have maybe an extra hour a day between lunch and that commute to hopefully be able to do some streaming. Hopefully be able to put together some videos and things like that. So I'll use the iMac to do that kind of content creation, mostly because it's got a 16:9 display. The 16-inch MacBook is a 16:10, so it's a bit trickier to get the aspect ratio right when you're exporting to 16:9 for YouTube. So I've got a couple of ideas for what I want to record. Sometimes I just want to jump on and just feel my way through. I did a test recording on YouTube a few weeks ago, which was just me going through what I thought was the then ping me bug. And it was 20 minutes of me testing out the green screen and the recording and all that kind of stuff using Streamlabs instead of Ecamm, which we're using for this podcast.
Right. Yep.
Just to test it out. And it was essentially just me talking my way through problem solving for 20 minutes, which may or may not be interesting to people. I find it, I personally find it interesting because you want to see, when you go on the Tailwind videos, for example, the ones that Adam does live when he's doing stuff, you see the thought process around how he's putting things together, as opposed to just a polished video of like click, 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 and it's done. It's seeing how people think through problems, how they construct their tests, how they, not in the Tailwind example, but I was going through, all right, we need a test for this specific scenario, and then going through the code and things. At the end of the day, it turned out there wasn't actually a bug, so it was 20 minutes of, spoiler alert, nothing came of it in the end. But so there's a bit of that I want to do, just live streaming interesting problems that I come across, or solutions. There's the collection stuff that we did for Then Ping Me, where we talked about taking the Stripe array of plans and putting that into a collection and then being able to interact with that collection. Like, I think that would be an interesting thing to put some videos together and talk about a little bit, and maybe put together a course of some description this year. Maybe. I have an idea for one. I have an idea for what the course would be, but I don't have an idea in terms of like layout or content, like a content outline or anything like that. I don't know how to go from start to finish and what would be interesting. So maybe some live streaming to fill that out, and go from there. We'll see what happens.
That's cool, man.
But
yeah, it's awesome. I love all the equipment that you got. It looks really great.
And I got one of the, because I've got the iMac, that's where I was going with that, because now I got the iMac, because I was going to go into the office sometimes. I didn't want to have to be like keeping environments in sync and code in sync. So I got one of the new, they asked me, what do you want? So I got one of the new M1 Airs, and
nice.
I haven't done anything beyond setting up, Mac OS and getting my dot files on there and things like that. But just that experience, everything, for anyone who's got reservations about, things might not work because it's ARM, I haven't run into any issues with anything. Docker works. Not that I use Docker heaps, but
that's good
because I'm going to be using PHP 5.4. I want to keep like modern PHP on my MacBook for running Composer and things like that. But for the environments that I'm be working in, they're either going to be remote development servers or Docker containers locally, so that I can keep PHP 5.4 and whatever separate. But it flies. The only thing that I came across was that there is no ARM build for MySQL. So if you're putting MySQL into Docker, you have to use MariaDB at the moment, which is not the worst thing in the world. Like, Maria is fine. It's mostly feature compatible with MySQL anyway. So
it's close.
Yeah,
it's close. I've had some issues with it, but not too much. So yeah. Well, dude, that's great. That's exciting. It'll be interesting to see kind of what the next year brings. I'm kind of doing some of that with my teams. So like, for me, what's been going on with work recently is I've kind of come to the painful realization that the vast majority of my time is just not going to be spent doing development anymore, right? I still get to do it when I care to or when I really want to, but the most effective I can be is in really learning how to effectively delegate. But it gives me some interesting opportunities too, because I'm still sort of like the, what's it called? The person who basically interfaces, right? I'm the guy who basically discovers the features and then sort of like describes them in the best way that I can, and then hands them to the developers. And I'm still technically capable, so I can make really probably solid suggestions on how I would like it to be architected. But at the end of the day, I don't have time to nitpick and babysit the code either. So that's what I used to do. I used to do a lot more of that, where I was like, listen, guys, like I think the way that you're building this isn't really maintainable. So I'm actually going to suggest that you do it this way instead.
Yeah.
I understand like you've built the feature out, but I think you're making a mistake here. So like let's go this way instead. Much less
Yeah,
of
so
that.
you're
Like I
you're
still
kind of
review
like
the
more
code.
BA, yeah, but you're reviewing code, but you're kind of more BA project managery
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
and as you get further removed from the code, you'll be more BA project managery and less technical review, tech lead kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I think for me, the thing that was really stressing me out a lot was I was very, very, very concerned with the code quality, which is fine. Like it's good. But at the end of the day, like I found that most of the time, like a cursory review of that material, as long as I had my other two developers kind of self checking each other as well, they're not going to make such a big mistake that it's not something they can't learn from and recover from. It's
Yep.
very rare that they're actually going to make a mistake so large that it's going to be like they can't recover, right? So kind of what I've adopted instead is like I'm willing to like what I try to do is on the front end, I try and make really solid and good suggestions for how I believe something should be built and try and do a really good job of fleshing out the problem and any potential roadblocks they might run into
Mm-hmm.
and then saying go this direction and then letting them go that direction and at the end of it giving it a quick look over, having them compare notes with each other and saying making sure that it looks good, maybe making some like if I see something that actually will be a problem, saying like, hey, you might want to take a look at this. Like you're running this at the wrong time of day or whatever. Like that's
Yeah.
not going to work because of this schedule conflict. And then letting them go with it. And then when it breaks, not jumping in and being the guy who fixes it, just being like, hey, you wrote this code, you get to fix it. And I feel like they've grown leaps. I say that. I feel like maybe it's just the fact that they're now they understand that they're taking responsibility for their own code. Like that when it breaks,
Yeah.
they're going to have to fix it. And so they're being more careful, right? They're writing better tests. Like they're doing a better job, like doing end-to-end tests before it gets shipped. And so as a result, we kind of have less breakages. And when there is
Mhm.
breakages, it's not me jumping in and doing it because I've sort of like handed I've given them the authority to make the decision and said, here's what my thoughts are, but you decide, and then you get to deal with the consequences of it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's been good. Yeah. And so learning how to like effectively do that well with my teams, I think has been good. I still
Yeah.
do enjoy jumping in, and the cool thing is like I get to do a project this last like right before the end of the year that was like all Livewire and Tailwind and Alpine and whatever. So I still get to jump in and do stuff when I want to. It's just I don't have to. There are some days where I just don't
Yeah.
feel like it.
Yeah.
It's like I don't really want to do that today, and so I don't have to, which is cool.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch
But I
of stuff
talked to
that I was
Scott.
like trying to get done before I finished the last job, but there was one project. There was one project that I A wanted to do and B had to do before I finished. And
Sure.
I finished it and deployed it at like 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m. on my last day just as I walked out the door to the pub. And so, but yeah, the delegation was good, especially once the team got a bit bigger and I could say, all right,
Yeah.
you're good at doing this, you can deal with that. Still fielding questions. That person has now accepted, I believe, my role. So they're
Sweet.
in good
That's
stead.
good.
It's good for them.
So yeah, well that's like a testament to your skill as like a sort of a team lead too, right? As like your job is sort of to like train your replacement almost. So you did a
Well,
good job in that. Like
I mean, the last 6 months was me just throwing them in the deep end and answering any questions they
Yeah.
had. So
right,
and
yeah, pretty much.
now they're
Yeah.
in the ultimate deep end where like right now, I've had a few conversations with them over the last couple of weeks, since I left. But they're like they're more than capable, which is fortunate. It's just the volume of work outweighs the capacity of the team at the moment. So that's the only thing. And they've put offers to people to replace myself and Aaron, and they start mid next month, I think. So they're not too far off. It's just a little bit of a bumpy ride between now and then for them, but
Sure.
it should be okay.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Well, hey, we can start wrapping this up. I was going to say we are looking. We've been so thankful to have Fathom Analytics on as a sponsor over the last year. They have been awesome, and of course, their company is growing super rapidly as well due to the amazing work that they do there. We're so excited for them. We are going to be parting ways as far as sponsorships go, but we are still recommending them to anybody and everybody who will listen. So Fathom Analytics, definitely go check them out. We have a couple talks with a few other people that we're working on right now as far as sponsorships. So look for a new sponsorship in the coming year. And yeah, outside of that, man, I think I'm going to call it a night and get some sleep for tonight. I got to start another week tomorrow. And I know you got kiddos that are waiting to see dad.
Yep.
Is Eli up yet?
Well, Eli's at childcare today, so we're okay.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Sweet, man. All right, well, hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us and hanging out. This was episode 88. If you'd like to find show notes for this episode, you can find them at northmeetssouth.audio/88. Of course, if you like the show, we would really appreciate it if you'd rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. And if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter at Jacob Bennett, at Michael Dorinda, or at North South Audio. All right, everyone. Until next time, my friends, we will see ya.
See you.